Hey, so this is the first episode of my mini abroad podcast, my abroad chats, and I'm super excited about it. I created this because there was all this information that I looked for and couldn't find about racial disparities within abroad, about studying abroad in COVID, which obviously is a new topic, but a really real topic that has affected my experience abroad, about roommates, about all these things that I feel like was lacking on the web, and definitely from a person of color. I didn't see this really looking at abroad. So I created it. So I'm really excited about all these chats. This first one is particularly about COVID-19. I have a friend of mine who was in a completely different program. I was in a program that was based off in college, and hers was based off post-college. But we both were studying abroad, and I think our experiences are both really good to hear. So soon she'll be joining me, and we'll be having this really great kicker off conversation. Hi Naomi, I'm so happy to have you on this episode. I know this is going to be definitely a heavy one, but I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for your time and for inviting me to do this. Pleasure, honestly, Mayana. And yeah, I'm excited. I probably wouldn't be excited to talk about it a couple months ago, but now I'm good.
I feel so. We want to tell me a little bit about yourself, like how we met.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I live in the Bronx. I've been living in the Bronx for about, I think, 13 years or 10 years or something like that. And I think we met. So the first one we met was in the Shut Up and Go event, which was very brief. Because I remember we probably had a very short conversation. It was like the speed, like I don't. And I remember following you after that. I think we shared exchange Instagrams, and I'm like, oh my god, she's so cool. And then I've been following you since then. And yeah, I graduated undergrad like 2 years ago, which is so crazy. But yeah, I had studied international studies and communication, and I also minored in Italian. And ever since, gotta get them languages.
Damn.
Ever since between the 2 years after graduation, I was working like part-time job, and I also was doing coaching. So I was doing health coaching specifically, sort of like, I guess a lot of people would call it life coaching. And I had coached two clients, and then I did the well, I had to do the Brazil thing, but it didn't happen. But yeah, that's a bit about me, and I'm trying to get back up into that coaching thing now. But yeah.
I'm manifesting that for you. And so, what exactly was the program that you studied abroad with? Like, because I studied with a program within my college. She's studying post college.
I did the Fulbright program. But yeah, it was they have like multiple different programs. They do like graduate programs and stuff, but mine specifically was an English teacher assistantship in Brazil for 9 months the university level specifically.
And what inspired you to go abroad?
Honestly, I feel like it's a lot of it has to do with how I grew up. Because I was born in the DR, like I said, and I came to the States when I was like 7, and most of my childhood was lived in between the two lands. And so I was so used to being in planes and traveling back and forth, and every time I think about it, I think it's crazy. Like, as kids, we get used to, like, switching from culture to culture, and like, I guess, um adapting. And so in college, not in college, in high school, my senior year, I got to do an exchange program in China for like 2 weeks. It was my first time, like, actually, like, traveling other than like in between my homeland and the U.S. and that sparked it all. And then like when I got to college, I heard that we could do travel abroad, and I was a EOP student, which is education opportunity program. And basically they offer scholarships and help me with education books, and they also happen to cover like the initial cost, or like the, I think, sort of like the application fee or the beginning cost of the study abroad programs. And so I heard that, and I'm like, you know what? I told myself, I'm like, every year of undergrad, I want to travel. And that kind of sparked it. And, the Italian, I had studied Italian in high school too. And so I carried that over. And then I wanted to learn other languages. Portuguese then came. And I always saw, I don't know, the Brazilian culture. I think I probably listened to a song, and I'm like, what language is that? And I'm like, and then I started, diving in, and then and like next thing you know, I started watching a novela, like a soap opera, Brazilian soap opera, and I'm like, wow, this culture is absolutely beautiful. And then I was like, you know what? Why not just go there and study? And I did a study abroad program for like a semester. Lived in Sao Paulo for 5 months, I think it was, and I got to travel to many different cities. And then after I graduated, as I feel like many of us probably have this life crisis moment when it's like, what are we gonna do with ourselves?
I feel that now.
Like, I feel like that. I'm not sure if it ever goes away. I'm starting to feel like and so I had that. I'm like, you know what? If I can keep on traveling, and then the Fulbright thing came up, and I'm like, you know what? I'll apply. And what's crazy is that I started applying. So I graduated spring of 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and I started applying like the summer of 2018. And in the fall of 2018, I did the interview, which was only one interview, and finished applying. And then in the spring of 2019 is when I was told that I got accepted.
Wow, it's been a year.
Yeah, a whole year. Oh my god. After, and that's a reason, like, also that I feel like I was so in between, and why going to Brazil was such a, like, a huge thing for me and many, actually all of us in the program, because we had to wait a whole year until we found out. Because I wasn't applying to any full-time positions or like career professional job, yeah, positions, because I was afraid that I would get the acceptance and then I'll have to leave, and I didn't think that was okay, even though people told me, Naomi, it doesn't matter. But that kept me away from applying to a lot of full time stuff. And then after I was told that, I'm actually starting in 2020, I is when I started to get like part time jobs. And yeah, that's why I think I just, after that like study abroad program in Brazil, it just sparked like living in Sao Paulo and I had met a lot of Brazilians in my university, and so I went to visit them all around Brazil, and it just, I grew a love. It was like a, honestly, home. 'Cause
I love that. Studying abroad, experiencing that in college, like changed your life. Like you were able to want to do it after college. Like it sparked something deeper than just going a semester, which I totally agree with me too. I know I've been wanting to go abroad for like ever, but my mom, yes, and that's the thing. I met her in the Shut Up and Go um, event, which was all about traveling. Like that's what sparked our relationship in the beginning. Even now, leaving, I feel like I need to go for Barcelona for a year. Like I feel like I need to do that. Like I want to experience it for so much longer because the spark is still there and it's still like in my bones.
I remember watching your stories, and I'm like, I remember the feeling. It reminded me of my study abroad experience in Brazil, because I did a whole bunch of other programs, but they weren't like study abroad programs. They weren't
Mm.
like semester long. It would be like 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know, to a month. But Brazil specifically, living there, and I saw your stories, just experiencing like your first times in Barcelona and then traveling around. I'm like, oh my, I know the joy she's feeling, and I'm like so happy, because it's just so, like, you just have to feeling in order, like, it's so hard to explain it, but it's such a special experience, so special.
I agree completely, and I just the way that this happened this time, I know it's just been crazy for all of us.
We're gonna end up going back for sure.
I'm already manifesting it. Well, when it first happened, I mentally prepared that I was gonna go back in January to ship myself back to Barcelona.
So wild, because so I use a lot of vision boards. I've been using it for like a couple of years, and right behind me over here is mine.
I see.
And I have it there because I just know it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I totally agree. It will. It will. It will happen. So what was the time that what time was it for you when you got the news that the borders were closing?
Oh my god. So I arrived in Brazil like early February, like the first week of February, and just to kind of give context to where we were at, we had a week of orientation where all the ETAs, the English teacher assistants from across Brazil, were to meet and do like sort of like informational stuff, blah blah blah, for like a week together in Sao Paulo. Then after that, we all had to go to our host cities, and
Mm.
so for like 3 weeks, I lived in Airbnb, and then I also lived on a friend's couch because I had such a hard time finding a an apartment. And then a week, about not even a week into me getting my apartment, maybe like I didn't even get to have my bed. My bed wasn't even delivered, or fridge. Maybe a couple days into me getting my apartment and signing the contract, putting down the down payment, getting my Wi-Fi up, my phone plan.
Everything situated.
I'll never forget, man. That was so traumatizing. It was, so we had Friday, they told us officially at like the 13th of March. And then the day before that Thursday, we were already talking about it because there were like some programs already that were canceling. So we were like, our ears were like, oh my God, it's a, yeah. We were, and I was kind of like preparing myself. I was like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It was, and let me tell you, a whole mess because the way they communicated, the way they dealt with it was absolutely like, so I feel like inhumane in many parts, because they gave us, it was a Friday, and if you know Brazilian culture, you understand that things take time to, like, when anything that comes to uh like businesses or anything, it takes a long time. So if you want to cancel contracts, whether that's phone plans, Wi-Fi, anything, that takes a long time. And these people gave us 3 days to leave the country, and it was very out of, like, I understand it was, they probably were under a panic. They were like, we need to get out as soon as possible. But when we saw the email, we were like, there's no way we can do this in 3 days. Like, we have to cancel all this and do a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of us, like, just like, we were refusing to leave. Like, nope, we're not leaving. Like, there's no way. The way this is being handled are like, first of all, are we gonna get our stipends, the money that we were promised to be paid? Because there were so many people in my program who had full-time jobs before Fulbright, like, their insurance, everything, and they left all of that, in the US to go to Brazil. And our entire year, the next 9 months, we were depending on these payments to survive. And then so we were like, there's no way we can, like, you can't just,
Kick us out.
and not, like, what's gonna happen? And so, yeah, a couple of us just, decided to just, lay it out and see what happened. And then, like, the next day, they were like, you know what, let's see what's gonna happen. And they were more so, like, I guess, a little bit more chill and understanding that we needed more time. And but then they also just continued to pressure us. They didn't know, like, whether Brazilian borders were gonna close, whether the U.S. was gonna close its borders. I had family, like, obviously being very scared, and yeah, they were like, Naomi, you have to come back now. I'm like, dude, I'm waiting it out. Like, I don't know. And I think there were some people who definitely left right away, but it took me I think it was a week into it that I was like, you know what, maybe the best thing is to just go. And thankfully, to cancel my contract, because I put down some down payments for the, I think we all know how that works, like, you have to put some money down.
Yeah.
And I was hoping I was going to get most of it back, and I did, thankfully, because I had my program manager, she brought in a lawyer and everything for to cancel the contract. So I'm so grateful that she was able to help. But there was other people in my program who probably didn't get any money back. They told us Friday that we had to go, like, we had 3 days, and we even wrote a whole petition and everything, laying everything out, how messed up this is. And the following Friday is when I had my flight, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. I think that's like very interesting because like I see some correlations to my experience, but then some like drastically different parts to my experience. Like I For me, it was actually, I think you've got the email probably because it was a night time that I remember it happened. So when Trump actually had that like speech where he closed the borders, it was 8 p.m. in the States, but it was like 3 a.m. in the morning in Barcelona. So I remember I was asleep. Cool. But like you said, we also kind of started hearing programs closing, things happening. And it was funny because about a week before that, we had friends in Italy who were getting sent home. So as you know, like because we were abroad, we had a different perspective on all of this because we've been seeing it slowly take over.
You were in Europe, so that was very much,
I mean, when I went to Italy for a weekend trip, they were taking my temperatures already. So I already knew that things were going to start happening, but something in my head told me Barcelona's a little farther to the west, will be fine. So, and a week ago before I left, I had friends getting sent home. And then the day before, they closed my classes. They were no longer in person. We had our last in person class that Wednesday, but they said we could stay in Barcelona and take our classes online. It was fine. You can still live in your apartment. Like, Barcelona is fine, but you can't, like, we're no longer going to have it in class. And I was like, damn, it's kind of fucking okay, great. And then I literally went to sleep, like, okay, like, trying to already cope with that information. I was already, like, healing with this. And then I wake up. I was like, my roommate banged on my door, like "My wake up, my wake up, my wake up," and I'm like, "What the hell? It's like 2 a.m." And she's like, "Trump closed the fucking border, sis. Wake up." And I was like, oh, and all after that moment, my phone started going off. Family started reaching out. My mom called me. And then I was like, it was like my body automatically flipped. Like I had like a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I think one of it was I was so nicely asleep, and then everything just woke me up. But also the fear of everyone else's voice, like I started to internalize it, and my flight was the next day. So it was 3 a.m. in the morning. My mom was like, "You're leaving." Like my mom, my family were like, they felt like it was better for me to leave as soon as possible. And back at it, I understand because the next few days getting flights were really hard. But the price of my flight was ridiculous. It was like a $2,000 flight. Well, my family helped me with this, luckily. So I had that privilege of like having my family to help me. But like that was expensive ass flight. I mean, like everything was going up because there were so many people trying to leave. So I left the next day.
But your program didn't offer like to cover the cost or reimburse you later.
After we left and I was back in the States, there was like a few things. Like my school back home gave me like a somewhat reimbursement of the flight. Was it the whole flight? No, but obviously I understand like no one expected it to be as expensive as it ended up being. But in the moment it was kind of, we didn't have time to think about that. I mean, I literally woke up. It happened all at 3 a.m. I woke up again at 7 because I had to leave that day at 2. So I had from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. to pack my bags, pack my room, say bye to my teachers, say bye to my art teachers, go say bye to my friends. Like it was like, I know, like right now I'm like, because like it was all that, it was like I was on speed. So I totally get that. So a little different. I didn't have, like, you had a week, which is still was a stressful week, but I had less than 6-7 hours.
I would, and that's because I also had family tell me, Naomi, you have to come back ASAP. Like no matter what, even if they don't pay for anything, if they don't give you money, we got you. We're gonna find a way. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm staying because I'm gonna make sure they pay me my money. And it was so wild. Like I can laugh about it now,
But that's real.
The trauma that like the emotion that weekend was such an emotional roller coaster. It was probably the worst emotional roller coaster I've ever been on. And like I said, even talking about it, it brings up because it's so insane. It's so scary. Just I mean, I'm so thankful that the program they paid for our flights. They like set everything up. Sometimes was it like the best flights that they chose? No, because there were people that had to go through like 3 different airports, like international airports, and like a mess. But either way, very grateful that they were able to cover those costs. God, but that it was so insane. It was.
No, I have to agree. I do appreciate my program. Like my program, even with it all happening, when I went to when I had to, I got up and I was like, okay, first I guess the first thing to do is like finish my school. Like say I'm leaving. Like I don't know. I didn't know. Again, no one prepares you for this, which we'll get into later. Like the preparation for this, like who could prepare you for the worst? So it was kind of like mentally like what did I think was the first step. So I had to say bye to my program first to make sure they knew I was like leaving the country. And the level of comfort that happened in that office was something that I am so grateful for, because like you said, the programs really are important, even though there are things that obviously no one could prepare for on their side or our side. There was a lot of comfort that was given.
Yeah, I was very thankful. So the and my program manager at the institution, she was incredibly helpful, and many of them for us were like they literally they did so much, from like helping us cancel contracts to paying for rides and all this crazy stuff. It was like honestly, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that kind of support. It was so.
I totally agree. I totally agree. It's like that's one thing. I'm like, with all that, there was like a lot of soothing that was necessary. Looking at it now, working through it all, have you unpacked, like not just physically, like but emotionally? Like have you unpacked it all?
And I have, and I always tell this to my friends because they ask me, "Oh, how's it going?" I'm like, honestly, I'm so much better than how I was like a couple months ago because I was not doing good. It was such a scary time to be in, and I remember that weekend when everything happened, like I didn't care about anything. I'm like, dude, I was so numb, and a friend and I went out for literally a drink. It was the first time I ever in my life, and now I understand why people do it because like you just really don't care. The first time ever in my life I drank out of like wanting to, I guess, escape, or I don't even know how you would call it, but we went like to a bar, and literally we were talking to the bars and they were asking what's going. We were like sobbing. Oh my god, that experience was like it was so crazy, and it was very scary because when I came back, I also realized we were all in quarantine. It was like the obviously the very beginning stages. I noticed that I also leaned into alcohol. Maybe this is not the healthiest part to cope. So um I'm definitely I feel alive again. I didn't feel alive back then. Like it was like I would say like minor depressive episodes where I would just sleep all day, didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. I felt like a failure, even though it had nothing to do with me. I literally was like, dude, I'm walking into this airport and I feel like a clown. Like I'm coming back. I'm supposed to be away for 9 months. Like I feel like a whole clown walking through this airport and coming back. Where you know I a month ago I was saying bye to people as if like I was gonna be gone for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, I feel like I have emotionally unpacked. I was very very hurt. I was so extremely upset. I mean, and many of us in the program were so. I guess I don't know if resentful or like just I think rightfully so. We were just upset because the way they treated us. It was very there was so much that happened, but yeah, no, I'm very grateful that I allowed myself the time and space to do that unpacking because it took me, I would say, about a month or so to feel back. Like I was like, okay, I'm still breathing, I'm okay. I slowly started doing things that I enjoyed throughout my day. Going back to journaling, reading, like playing some guitar, or like at least trying to freaking practice guitar, or any little thing, meditating, and it really helped. And now I feel like I and I feel like a part of it also, I'm not gonna hold you, is the fact that later on, maybe like a month or two after it happened, they decided to pay us all of like most, not all of it, but most of our stipend. Yeah. So I'm I'm not sure what I would say if they didn't, if they didn't pay us anything, because they were planning on not have, like, they were only planning on us on giving like maybe like $2,000 more than it was, a total of like I think 12K that we were expecting to make. um But yeah, I think a huge part of that is the fact that they, agreed to pay like most of the amounts, because people, there were people like, and there still are a lot of Fulbrighters who are homeless, who don't have insurance, who are still trying to, just go through it. And there are many people, I mean, grantees who still haven't been paid anything at all. And so I'm very grateful and privileged. Like I realize I'm very, very blessed, and to be able to come back to living with my mom, like, I don't know what.
It's a blessing.
Man, yeah, for sure. But I'm doing much, much better. How about for you? How has it been?
I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of those feelings. I think when I first came back, it was interesting because my program really wanted me to self quarantine from being in Europe. So I came home and I quarantined, and by the time I finished quarantine, New York City was quarantining. So
Yes.
I was like, I never really stepped out the door for about a month. And to come back to New York City and only really see it on my car ride from the plane to the house, and then being locked there for a month, and then having to still do class because my class was still happening. I was overloaded and like just, I mean, luckily my school gave us about a few days because I was the first to leave, really. So people were still leaving the week after. So my program was really nice and lenient about handing in assignments for really the whole semester. Because look, we really were ending early because we were abroad. So we ended school April 25th. So I only had about 2 months left of school. People had school all the way into June. So my school is very lenient. That's why I'm very thankful for my program. And I think it definitely sucked for my family because I wasn't in the mood. I wasn't happy. I was angry too. I mean, I was going through all these emotions that now I can verbalize, but then I was like, I'm technically fine. Like, I'm home. I'm not sick. And I was so thankful for my time I had, and that's what kept me, I think, sane, was looking back at it with such joy. But I also was dealing with that emotion of like looking at the present with like such anger and frustration because you like you said, you prepare for these moments for a while and then it was ripped away like everything else in the world. And then like I think one thing that I realized was big was I didn't let myself really unpack for a minute because I felt like it wasn't important at that time. Like at that time, I was really dealing with my mom as a nurse, so there was a lot of other things that I knew were more important. Like I knew people were losing their, like you said, people are homeless, people are losing their jobs, people are going through all these things. I'm getting sent home from early from a vacation in some people's eyes. So I mean, like a lot of it, I was like, it's not important to feel or feel bad about, but I was so confused because I felt all these things, but I knew in the bigger scheme it wasn't. So I really had to work on like allowing myself to feel and to validating my own feelings, even though when there's like all these, I guess in some ways more, and in a lot of ways more important sadness going on in the world. Hi, this is Future Maya here with a few sponsorships. I am really, really excited to chat with you guys about WOOF and public goods. So, WOOF, which stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, is a network of homestays and organic farms that you can volunteer at. This is an amazing way to travel and see the world. With just one yearly fee, you get access to a whole network of safe and guaranteed fun places to stay at and learn at. For time helping out on the farm, you are able to live on the farm by night and learn on the farm by day. Their mission is basically to promote awareness of these practices and give us an opportunity to have a great educational and cultural exchange. I personally stayed on one of the farms on their network this last summer in Vermont, and that was my first solo experience traveling, and I gotta say it was truly empowering and also so educational for me and my journey with food. I have a code, Curly Mayana, that will give you 10% off your membership for the year, making the price basically just 1.5 dinner outings with your friends, $36. I think that's a great deal. So please take a part in this amazing opportunity and fantastic way to see the world. The second sponsor is Public Goods. Public Goods is a yearly subscription brand focusing on giving us healthy, sustainable products at an affordable rate. And they also partner with another project that plants trees, so every time you order, they plant a tree, which I think is pretty cool. They ship internationally, so wherever you are, you can take part in Public Goods. And I have a 15% off code for your first purchase, which is Curling Mayana PGA. So please use that when you are purchasing to get 15% off. That's pretty good amount. Alright, I hope you take part in Wolf and Public Goods. And back to Maya with the episode and talk for the day. How are you looking at it? Like, that was how we were feeling the first few months, which, like you said, is valid. And I think it's very important to, like, realize it was valid to feel frustrated and thankful at the same time. Because that's basically what we had. Like, happy for the experience, but then also so frustrated on how the experience went. And looking at it now, what are you feeling post a few months, post like the hard, intense part of quarantine? How are you coping with all of that now?
Honestly, I'm extremely grateful. Like, I'm so grateful. I know, like, I would be down the road, but obviously when you're in this depressive state, you're like, I don't care. Like, this seems like it's never gonna end. But I'm very, very grateful, and I realized it was the correct thing to do, because I'm not sure how safe I would have been if I would have stayed in Brazil. I don't know. The health crisis that has happened in Brazil has been very, very, like, bad. And we were talking, like, amongst us ETAs, we were discussing how much of a burden we would feel to the Brazilian, government and the people, that we have to take up, if anything were to happen, God forbid, that we were to take up a space in a hospital where we felt like Brazilians deserved that space. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm very grateful. I think, as always, everything happens for a reason. The other ETAs and I, that when the whole revolution started here in the US, we were like, this is why we were meant to come back, to be part and take part in this, because we know how meaningful it was for us. And I'm like, this is insane, just how everything plays out. And it's taught me a lot, and I've allowed myself to learn so much from it. It's absolutely incredible. Very grateful for, obviously, the opportunity, like we've said. I have people that ask me about the program and whether or not they should trust it or not, and I'm very honest with it. And I think there's such an incredible value, like the mission of being able to go and travel elsewhere, some like a place where it's so different from your own comfort, and being able to understand the world in a better way, or like I think that mission still holds true. And I feel very empathetic, and it's crazy, because I'm like, if I would have been working as like the person who has to deal with the students or the grantees, I don't know how I would feel, but it'd be so insane. But I'm very grateful for it, and I look back at it and I think to myself, because for a long time after I did my semester abroad in 2017, I had that dream and that ambition of, I want to live in Brazil for longer, like for 3 years or whatever. And I took this like situation, and I was like, maybe I don't need to go through a program to get the experience. Maybe I could just buy a one-way ticket and be like, peace. And so that's what's like been on my mind. And one day I feel like I would just go ahead and buy that one-way ticket. And yeah, I'm just grateful and looking forward to whatever the rest of the year has in store, because I feel like we do have an opportunity to make out of bad, quote unquote, bad things, we have an opportunity to make good things out of it.
Along the same way, I mean, I was journaling a lot because I was looking at my goals for my abroad experience. Like, I had all these goals of growing confidence and all these things, and I look at it and I was like, did I? And I'm like, I did. Like, even there were so many things that I started abroad that I continued now. Like, I haven't showed my visual art in the sense I do now. Like, I started that abroad, and I now have a creative shop. So there's so many things that I feel like you said, I wouldn't have done that if I didn't come home early and I didn't have that time to sit with myself. With Revolution, I don't know how I would feel knowing that my family and all this stuff is in danger and being away. If I was away for during all these sad moments, I don't know how I would be able to cope with that.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a blessing to be home, even though I wish this didn't happen at all. But to be home right now is really a blessing, and I totally agree with that. I think some part of me also feels like it was all a dream. I think now going back at it, I'm like, I guess like the whole situation feels like I like look back at it, I'm like, that did happen.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning I was like not looking back at pictures. I made a little video to like kind of help myself, but like really looking back at the moments I didn't. And then now I have been really looking back at the pictures, like really reminiscing on the time, realizing how much it impacted me, realizing how like a blessing it was more. I'm allowed to look at those pictures. Like, that did happen. I did experience that. I did do that. That was an accomplishment, even if it was a day or 4 months, like for you, 9 months. And I think definitely you have a particular experience with like your program, which is really real and very valid. My program, I'm now an alumni ambassador. So I feel like even if I didn't stay long, I can still make an impact in the circle of it. And like you said, even my 2 months there, it opened up an eye for me to go longer.
And that's so real. It's so crazy and beautiful to see the different stages, and obviously a lot of this has to do with grief. To like I myself, I like maybe a couple weeks ago, I realized how much I didn't even listen to Brazilian music because I didn't want to, I literally felt like I just needed to forget, like not be reminded that I, went through that. But now I'm like, you know what? Let's go. Like that happened. That did happen. It happened in 2020. It happened this year. Even though it seems like it was a long
A year ago.
Honestly, it did happen, and it's a part of the journey. It's a part of it all, and that's also okay. And yeah, it's really beautiful. I'm happy.
I'm happy for us too. Do you feel that there was a part of what happened that no one could prepare you for? I felt a big part of how I was feeling before was like, I wish I was prepared for this. Like, I wish I could have, someone told me this was going to happen. Like, I had this frustration feeling like I prepared so much and I still feel so unprepared for what happened. Do you feel like anybody could prepare you for that, or that had to be an experience that you'd have had on your own?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I feel like, and I will always continue saying this because the lack of support and just crisis management that like the Fulbright program in Brazil had, and just I feel like in many other countries too, was very scary. Like even if it, obviously nobody was ready for this. Ain't nobody, maybe there was somebody out there who did know,
T.
but ain't nobody knew, right? And so it like however, I feel like to a certain extent, organizations that are, that are in charge of people's lives, that, we have to depend on whether it's a study abroad program or whatever it is, they have this level of responsibility to be able to understand how to handle a crisis. Whether, you never know how big it's going to come, but either way, a crisis is a crisis, right? And so I feel like in a sense, they could have done so much better, so much better. Sense that no, we couldn't have been prepared. Man, there's just shit that happens in life that ain't nobody, like, you just don't know until you know. And so it's like one of those things.
Yep.
People say like you don't know what it's like to be a mom until you're a mom, or like in any experience. Like I know we can sort of like be able to empathize in a sense, or sympathize with situations when we look at them, but to experience it itself is very very different. And if anything, be able to have a support system behind you, like friends. Oh my god, if it wasn't for a group of incredible people that I met, other ETAs in my program, we literally had each other for the time, for the whole journey, for the whole, when it happened, and when we came back to the States, all checking in on each other and
Totally
talking and having
agree.
conversations. If it wasn't for that support system, because I would talk to people about it here, and like friends here, and it's just,
We couldn't understand yet.
yeah, even though they really care for you, and they, they just, it's just, they don't get it. they don't get it, and it's okay. They don't have to get it, but to be able to have someone who understands, I think that's probably the best thing you could have, like, through it all. Because
I agree. What did you think the biggest thing you learned about yourself going through this? Like you were saying.
and it just serves as a reminder to me whenever I may find myself in like a very difficult situation again, that no matter what, I'm it's gonna be over. Like, I'm gonna get through it, and I can get through it, even though in the moment I don't want to hear shit about, oh, it's gonna pass. But I deep down, I know that it's temporarily for as long as I allow it to be. And when, like, the fact that I am, even breathing is a blessing in itself. So I feel like to be able to remind, like, I literally every day just tell myself, like, keep going, keep going. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Just like, I look at myself, like, from like 3 months ago, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, wow, yo, you are the shit. Cause like,
Girl.
it's like you look back and you're like, how the hell did I do it? You know?
I totally agree. I mean, that's such a blessing you're able to learn that about yourself too. Like that's such a great thing, even though like it's very wrapped in a very bittersweet wrapping. I would agree with that. What you said about preparing, and it was really hard to throw fingers because I know there was like so much the whole world was dealing with. But I totally agree that like when the first person went home in Italy about 3 weeks before everything exploded in Barcelona, we should have all been sent home. I think looking back at it now, there should have been a level of like when China was really going through in the beginning, the whole world should have recognized it and sent them at home. And looking back at it, I realized that like people did take a little bit. We all, as a collective, took a little bit more leniency on how bad it was going to be, and I guess that's a lesson for us all to recognize.
Yeah.
And I hope programs recognize that for the next. So that will be, you'll know that next people who get to go to these programs will have a lot more, I guess, safety measures because we were the trial. We were the trial of this crisis. And that's that's how I've been looking at it now. But I definitely agree that there could have been that. And preparing for the days going home, I don't think no one could have prepared me for that. I think that was definitely, I had to take something from inside of me and pull it out. Like whatever strength I had internally, I just had to use all of it because I think if I wasn't on my toes and didn't believe that I could do it, it could have been a lot more chaotic.
Yeah.
So I do think that. And what I learned about myself, I totally agree about strength. I realized I'm way stronger than I thought I was. And I also realized that what you're supposed to go through will happen either way if you think that's how it's supposed to have happened. If that makes sense. Like I had a lot of goals and they were accomplished, but they were accomplished in a completely different way than how I expected them to be accomplished. And I didn't realize that until, like you said, now looking back at it. And so anything you would say people going in planning to go abroad and planning to do this, like gonna go through this, do you think anything they can take away from our experience?
I encourage anyone who's like interested in study abroad to talk and find and see if you have a way of connecting with a student or a grantee, whatever, that went through the whole, like, situation this year, and see how the program dealt with it, because the program will tell you certain things, but then they won't. Like, I think it's so much better for you to understand, you know um to understand it from like a first person perspective, and you'll be able to kind of have like a better mindset and be able to, to a certain extent, prepare yourself for certain things, asking the right questions, asking the program, okay, what are your procedures. It's okay for you to ask, like, dude, they have your life is basically in their hands. So I think more than anything, asking those questions: how did you handle the situation, and what things would you have done differently, and are you going to do differently if something similar were to happen.
I totally agree. I would add maybe to also, well, two things I would add. One, like you said, every experience is valid. Of that, if this hasn't taught me that, I don't know what has. What I looked at people who studied abroad previous years, and then look at my year, a part of me felt like, wow, I didn't get to experience as much as I thought abroad was. And then I realized I did experience what abroad was. I experienced a lot of what abroad was, and I think just remembering going in that your experience might be 2 months, it might be 4 months. I hope it's the whole program, but whatever you get to experience, it's valid and it's real, and you did it and you accomplished something. And I think another thing is to also really don't take your time for granted. Go in and know that the first day you land is an accomplishment. The next day you're there is an accomplishment. Every day you spend there is something, and to remember that even before you get there, so when you leave, at least you can know that you lived those 2 months you did live with something. Like, something did happen those 2 days. Even if it was only an hour you were in Barcelona, you had a great freaking hour. So I just think that to remember that going in. Okay, so now we have a quick round of questions. What's one place you wished you visited before you left?
In Brazil, I wanted to go to the Salvador where Brazil all started. Yeah.
I would say I wish I visited the south section of Spain, like Andalusia. How long was your trip home, and how many planes did you have to take?
I think it was about a day long, and I took 2 planes. I think initially I had to take 3, but then they cut it down to 2. I think it was 2. Yeah, I'd say 2.
Did you have a layover?
I did. I had a layover in I think it was Belo Horizonte, like in Brazil, because I was in the northern part of Brazil, so I had to go center, and then I went to New York.
Got it. I had 2 planes, and I left for my plane at like 2 p.m. I think. So I think my plane didn't really leave till 7. And I remember I had my layover in London, and I had an 11-hour layover.
Ooh.
So, and I didn't have time to get a place to stay, so I was in the Starbucks, like, watching YouTube the whole time, like, you're gonna stay up. My 2 like huge luggages, but my plane ride, the second plane ride, was like weirdly like where I was empty but also full at the same time. Like, I had the whole road to myself, which that was like a good part, I guess, of the whole travel experience. But like, it was definitely still full, but definitely less full, I think, than yours, because by that point people were all like heading home. Mine was like whoever got the first flight out. So, but no, yeah, mine was 2 flights, 11-hour layover in London. So I was about a 2-day. I left Thursday. I didn't get home until like Friday night, but technically Friday morning because of the time change. The last question was, how many bags did you start off with, and how many bags did you end with?
Ooh, I remember packing. I never in my life. I always wondered if I was ever gonna pack, like, just throw my stuff in the luggage, and I literally just threw everything in.
Going home, I did the same thing.
I think I left with the same amount of bags. I had two bags that I checked in, so I had to pay some fees for them bags. And then I had a carry on and a backpack. So, like, 3 suitcases and 1 backpack, I would say.
But you came with the same amount and left with the same amount. That's impressive. I came with 1 big, like, gigantic luggage and 1 backpack, and I left with 2 luggages in my backpack. So I had to buy 1 because I didn't have. I mean, I technically probably could have fit everything in the 1, but I had like no time to think. So I was like, I'm gonna throw everything in the second bag, and I'm gonna leave. And when I get home, I'll like unpack it all. But I left with 1 more.
Honestly, I think one of my bags were overweight. So
mine's 2.
Yeah, that was crazy.
No, yeah, crazy. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me on this talk. I mean, it's really a good talk and a packed talk, but honestly, a really needed talk.
For sure. Thank you so much for your time once again and your energy. It's always a pleasure to be able to, have these conversations. And yeah, appreciate you so much, and looking forward to everything else that you create and just share to the world. And yeah, all the best.
Thanks, girl.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, thank you for listening. That was the end of Abroad Chats with Mayana, episode 1. I want to go over the credits. Big thank you to Public Goods and Woof for creating those codes for us. I also want to thank Samantha Feliciano for the song that happens during the sponsorships, and Cinder Music Productions for creating the theme song, Blessed by Your Voice. Well, have a fantastic day, and keep shining and glowing like you guys all do, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye now.